Once again, welcome to Music and Conversation. And you know how those Dos Equis commercials have the most interesting man, you know? And let me just say that the first guy was actually a lot more interesting than the second guy. I don't think he's really all that interesting. But I think they really kind of missed the boat, because I think that probably they should have got Michael McNevin. Because this guy is interesting. This guy is not your average Joe by any stretch. You know, he not only doesn't confine himself to center, he completely avoids center pretty much, which is a good thing in an artist. Michael McNevin is a visual artist whose media includes songs and Etch-a-Sketch screens. No kidding. I'll tell you about that later. He's a storyteller, a poet, a singer, an entertainer, but more than anything else, he's a songwriter. He's been selected as a winner or a finalist in every major folk festival songwriting competitions, including Telluride, Rocky Mountain, and the Kerrville Folk Festival. He was nominated for Artist of the Year by the National Academy of Songwriters. He's performed all over the U.S. and in Europe, shared the stage with Johnny Cash, Richie Havens, Iris Dement, Robert Earl Keen, Greg Brown, Christine Lavin, Shawn Colvin, and the list goes on. I could keep going for about 10 minutes. I remember back in the 90s, Michael used to tour the country in this little pickup, and he took the passenger seat out of the pickup and put like a little desk in there so that he could write songs when he was traveling. I'm not absolute. I didn't witness him writing a song while driving, but I wouldn't put that. I think that probably is true. That probably happened.
Did.
I think he's probably just about as quirky and just as fascinating now as he was when I first met him in 1991. You're gonna love him. Please give a warm Schreiner University welcome to Michael McNevin.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Why don't you start us off with a song?
Okay. All right. I live in Northern California. I live in a trailer. It's a nice trailer. It's under some avocado trees. This is about a guy who lives in a trailer. But it's not about me. It's a different guy. He lives in Barstow, and he just wants to trade up to what I got. I got a dog patch of sand and a place for my rig. I got a 30-foot trailer and a porcelain head. I got a Joshua tree and a 10-by-12 shed. You take the queen and I'll take the sofa bed. Come visit sometime. Come visit sometime. Aluminum Oasis, if you don't mind the drive. I got cold beer and cribbage, AC and propane. Come visit sometime, and I'll do the same. You can fry an egg on 15. It's a money mirage. To the motels and tow trucks and the Barstow garage. Too hot for a hammock. I'd rather get out of Dodge. You need a shade tree mechanic. You got room in your yard. Come visit sometime. Come visit sometime. I'll tune up your caddy. Won't cost you a dime. If it rains cats and dogs, honey, I won't complain. Come visit sometime, and I'll do the same. Dear big avocado trees grow low-hanging fruit. Do they shade the hot side of the house? Lucky you. Could an old Spartan trailer sit under 'em too? Would it bother the neighbors? Are there jobs I could do? Does your faucet pour water from the Hetchetty Dam? Could the grass there be greener? Picture this if you can. With your rose-colored glasses, oh dear Polly Ann. Could you see yourself loving Yosemite Sam? Now the buzzards in Barstow circle high every day. This ain't no bird bath, it's a game of decay. 120 degrees in the shade. Nobody would miss me if I headed your way. Or come visit sometime. Come visit sometime. J. Paul Getty built beauties, and this one's all mine. I got cold beer and cribbage, AC and propane. Come visit sometime, and I'll do the same. Come visit sometime, and I'll do the same.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice. Well, okay, let's get the vitals out of the way.
The what?
The vitals.
Oh, the vitals.
Yeah,
Okay.
like what's the name on the birth certificate?
Michael Kiernan McNevin.
Kiernan.
Kiernan's my middle name. Irish.
Irish.
Yeah.
And the place?
Born San Mateo, California.
So tell us about your music education. Where'd you get your training?
Well, I was self-taught on guitar for 4 years. I was about 14 when my dad's guitar was sitting in the corner. Nobody played it, including him. He bought it in San Diego and never learned to play it. And it had been sitting around the house most of my life. And I picked it up one day, and my brothers and I would all pick it up and put it on the lap for a few minutes and pluck the strings. And then I looked in the bottom of the case one day, and I saw a Mel Bay book down in the bottom, and on the back of the book there was a bunch of pictures of chords. And I thought, that's all you got to do to play the thing is just put your fingers where the dots say to put them. So there was no theory involved, and I probably learned, I learned the first 10 chords probably in a month or two, and then kept playing, and then teaching myself songs, learning from some friends who knew some rock and roll licks. And by the time I was 16, I bought my first electric, and I had taken 2 months of lessons from a jazz guy, and just kept going on from there and got into a rock band. I was always into the Gordon Lightfoot that my dad was playing and the Paul Simon that was on the radio. Those are major influences. Richie Havens was on the turntable a lot. Ray Charles, Mose Allison. The old Elton John stuff, Yellow Brick Road. My brother John played piano. I should probably not leave him out. He was playing piano in the house when I was younger. and I could play a couple things on the piano. And by the time I was 18, I was playing lead in a garage band. We were playing AC/DC, and
Now you took some
UFO was my favorite band. I learned a lot of solos playing Michael Schenker, the Scorpions guitar player. I learned to play lead from him.
You took some actual theory and formal music training a little later on.
I did. Yeah, so here I am playing all this electric stuff, always really into the acoustic as well.
Right.
And I started writing songs when I was in college. My first year of college, I wrote my first song. And I was studying, I don't know what, I almost dropped out. In the second year of college, I decided I needed to do something I cared about. So I studied classical guitar for a year with a guy named Jim Bertram, really great guy. And he got me playing with my nails, my fingernails, and more elaborate finger picking that you can ever do is classical guitar. It's the hardest guitar style to master, in my opinion. I lasted a year in that program, and I learned to read okay. I was not great. It took me a lot longer than other people to finish the homework because I wasn't very, literal reading, but I worked really hard at it, got A's and B's, and then I went on to study some fiction and acting. I actually took a course and a year of that too, performing arts.
When do you think you got serious about songwriting?
Well, I think I was always serious about it. I did 1 year where I was really light on the courses, and I played a bar gig for 8 months, a place called the Brass Door. And I had been writing in college about a song a month, none of which, those songs I don't play anymore. They're all beginner songs in a way. Some people come out of the box writing pretty good songs. I think I took a while to figure it out. I did a lot of rhyming and wrote a lot of songs with those rhymes, but I didn't really know what I was going to say or why most of the time.
So I think a lot of us, a lot of the songs you've forgotten, and some of you've chosen to forget. But
yeah,
what would you say was your first keeper?
First keeper, actually, I don't know if I could remember how to play it. It was called Castaway. I dropped out of. I played this bar gig 4 hours a night, 3 nights a week for 8 months. So I went from knowing about 20 songs to 250 covers. So I was writing in the, I learned a lot, but I also, really worked my voice and my fingers to death. And studying classical was also real hard. So I just, I got this chance to live in New York City, in Jersey City. And I moved to Jersey City for 6 months, and I played the streets in Manhattan. So I'm 22, and I don't recommend anybody here to drop out of college. That's what I did. And I went to Greenwich Village and played Folk City. I was 21 or 22 years old. And I think that experience opened me up as a writer. I started writing about real stuff. Castaway was just a story song about my buddy and I going fishing on the bay before I left. Conversation between us. And shortly after that, I got thrown in jail for jumping over a turnstile in the subways, going from Jersey City to Manhattan to play. And that became a song called Jersey Jail.
Do you remember it?
I do. I could play it. I will play it for you. Now that you want to hear about my stupid youth, sure, I'll play it for you. I got to say this: there's no excuse for what I did. I'm not making excuses for it. People think this is an anti-authoritarian song, but it's not. It's just me telling what happened. Oh, this might get. Let me move the. Where's that little? Here, let's make sure that doesn't get. This is called Jersey Jail. I had no time or change to spare. The train was pushing that tunnel air. It's in the station when the warm wind comes a rushing in. So I took my chances and I jumped the stile. The camera saw me and a subway cop came after me. He had a rookie badge and a baby face. He couldn't wait to take me in. He said, you're gonna spend the night in a Jersey jail for the 80 cents you owe the rail. Well, he cracked a smile and he cuffed my hands and he led me into a paddy van. I wasn't alone. They had their day with 7 more like me who didn't pay. All but one were from Mexico, and the native tongue was all they spoke. If they had their rights, well, they wouldn't know. And it's off to Journal Square we go to spend the night in a Jersey jail for the 80 cents we owe the rail. Trouble with authority, blame it all on poverty. They know what to do with me, a lesson in humility. Living here under the gun, I don't know when to walk or run. Where's the money coming from? Well, these are my priorities. Now 7 hours is quite a spell to wait around in a holding cell. But you can sure enjoy yourself. A strip search and fingerprints, this and more for 80 cents. This happened to me a long time ago. This is a pretty old song. And a number of years later, I was touring back east. And I don't play in New Jersey much, and you'll find out at the end of the song why I probably shouldn't. But I thought I was safe. I was in Pennsylvania, just over the Jersey border. I played this song. And at the end of the show, a Jersey cop came up to me. He said, you know, I could take you in. So I gave him a CD because they're really easy to bribe. And my mom read an article in the Associated Press about a woman in Buffalo, New York, that this happened to as well. And this happened to her later on. And times had changed by then. She was strip searched, thrown in jail, for jumping over a turnstile. And so she sued the Buffalo police for $900,000. I got a song out of it. She got $900,000. So I sent her a CD too. Sent her lawyer one too. Never heard back. Can't blame me for trying though. That night I slept in an issue blanket with my stomach empty and a wooden mattress. Bars around me, right or wrong. 4 a.m. time to move along. And at court the next day they fined me 60. They sent me on my way, but I left New Jersey, haven't paid it yet, and I never will. I paid enough for the overkill when I spent the night in a Jersey jail for the 80 cents I owe the rail. Thank you.
That's great. You mentioned both your dad and your brother, in talking earlier about guitar. And I remember a lot of times, hearing you talk about your family, and I think you just close family. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that some of those memories and stories came out in songs. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I've got 3 other brothers who are all about a year apart. And, you know, it's great growing up in a family where you're that tight. You know, you got 3 buddies to hang out with. And, you know, my mom, God bless her, get off the roof, boys, you know. But yeah, I think that my early going especially, you know, I'm writing a lot different kind of songs now, but I did mind my past quite a bit. Yeah. And there's so many Huck Finn stories where I grew up, and I think probably a town like this has it too. Kids get out of the house, don't come back till dinner, and you're out feeding off the trees for lunch and the orchards and stuff. And the lakes that we had growing up in Niles, where I grew up is Niles Canyon. It's where the first set of train tracks came into the Bay Area in the 1860s. And it was the first Hollywood. Charlie Chaplin made the tramp there. It's a real colorful place, an old downtown. And we all had paper routes, and we, you know, we made money however we could, collecting bottles. And those always led to adventures. You always had a mitt, you know, and a ball hanging off the front of your bike to get a game going. I sound like an old guy now because I am an old guy, but I wrote these songs. I was pretty young, looking back on my childhood. And you guys, I don't know if you're all, you know, writing or creative writers, or maybe you're musicians, but, you know, you're all living the stuff you're going to write about later. That's what you're doing.
A lot of good material there. Why don't you give us an example?
Sure. I'm going to borrow your guitar.
Sure.
And see what kind of damage I can do. I'm going to plug this in somewhere in the back. Ready for this?
Bill?
I'm going to go crackle, snap, pop. Here we go. All right. So I mentioned the paper routes. Everything I had, paper routes, clothes, a lot of it was hand-me-downs from my brother, from all my brothers. My brother John, the oldest, started the paper routes, and Danny got one, and we all had a couple of paper routes to make some money. And then my brother Pat, my oldest brother right above me, we shared a room, and he got a job working for the grocery store in town, because he was old enough to do that. And by the time I was 18 and 16, 17, he was working for the grocery store. And he'd come home from work at night. He was managing the store at night when he was 19, 20. And I was still in high school. And I was trying to sleep, and he'd come in and he'd turn the light on. I'd roll over, cover my head with the pillows, and I couldn't tell him what to do. He could tell me what to do. And so he'd start to clip his toenails. And I'd wake up, and he'd start to talk to me about his day. It was like I was his spouse. He was coming home to tell me about his day. And it meant a lot as memories for brothers. I didn't like it at the time. He'd get woke up. But we look back on it now, man, that was good brother time. And I didn't know it, but he was teaching me the grocery business because he was talking about his day. And when I got out of high school, I went to work for him. I was a bagger.
I bag the groceries at store number 3. I wear a white shirt and tie. No one's faster than me. I'm the youngest bagger here. I work 4 shifts a week. I wet down the produce and I bale up the cardboard, and I fetch out the shopping carts in front of the store. And I know I'm the low man on the pole. Nowhere but up to go for me. The bagger at store number 3. I play along
where the trucker cracks a joke to help pass the time for the kids and their folks. They say, throw in some candy, man, I'm dying for smoke. They read the gossip and the rags by the stands, talk about the neighborhood, the heat and the gangs. And I count the bottles, they trade in for change, but it stays the same. For the low man on the pole, every time I punch the clock I see the world from store number 3. A woman comes in here 2 times a month for a 12-pack of lager and a Hunger Man lunch. I walk her outside, she leans on the cart, then she leans on my memory, she forgot where she parked. Some live on welfare, they got children to feed. Some turn to stealing to get what they need, but mostly they work and spend it like me. As fast as the bagger at store number 3. At night I start the sweeping and I straighten up the rows. At 10 I hear my brother say, come on, it's time to close. He got me in here, taught me everything I know. Like when to keep my mouth shut, or when to speak my mind, when to take a shortcut, when to take my time, how to help people know it's okay to be in line, and how to give some credit to the low man on the pole. Nowhere but up to go for me, the bagger at store number 3.
Some nice picking, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, let's give the audience a chance. You guys does somebody have a question for Michael?
What we want you to do is when you have a question, stand up and we'll pass the microphone to you.
Hi, how many songs do you think you've written in your career?
We were talking about that today at lunch because of our Bill's a songwriter too, and me and Bill go way back. And I think the older you get, maybe the more you love to write, but maybe the less you do. That sound about right? And so I probably wrote 30 or 40 songs through my college years, which is pretty prolific, about a song a month. And I probably did that for the next, 10 years. And then you end up getting, in a way, more creative, and you write this and you write that, and you end up with a shoebox, and you end up with another box of ideas and half songs. So I probably have 120 or 30 songs that I learned and wrote start to finish that I could play out, I can't remember them all now. And then I probably have another 150 half songs laying around waiting for me to go finish them. That's probably where I'm at with that.
Yeah.
Sound about right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that's probably true. One of the things that I have also observed, and you kind of alluded to this earlier about you over the years, is that you have this sort of unbridled enthusiasm for life, and you seem to find the joy and optimism in a lot of situations that others might look at with fear and trepidation. And I'm remembering, and sometimes it comes out, I think, in your songs. And so remember something about Trestle?
Oh yeah, that's another one from the childhood days.
Yeah.
I can play that for you.
Would you?
Yeah.
You want to tell a story?
Sure. I would say that I wrote a lot of fiction more recently, right? There's a little truth in all of the fiction, Typically, you're writing about
And a little
yourself.
fiction and all the truth, too.
There you go. Yeah, fiction and all the truth. It's a blend. But I was really into writing my history when I first, because that's, if you know the story, you know how to tell it. You know all the details. You don't have to make anything up. And this is a true story. I actually wrote this song, and I'm going to be touring in Pennsylvania pretty soon. I'm going to be there next month again. And I think I was in Maryland at the time I wrote this. And in fact, our mutual friend, Tom Prasada Rao, I was hanging out with him quite a bit back there when I wrote it. I wrote it in the Panzer's upstairs living room, and I played it that night. And it's a song that would have been not a very fun song to write had it turned out differently. And if it had really been turned out differently, I wouldn't have been able to write it at all because I would have been dead. So I grew up in this train town, and me and my buddy Rob were up on the Trestle together. Like we'd been up on that Trestle 100 times, Who'd have thought a train would come?
You guys know what a trestle is?
Train bridge. Trestle is a place that can hold a train, and it's going over a really long body of water, and that's what we were doing. True story. Oh, I gotta say, so I started this song, I wrote it from my buddy Rob's perspective, because he was the one who decided he would race the train when it got on the bridge. I was a year older than him, and I was faster than him. And he was the one who decided to race the train. And I hung off the edge of the trestle, waiting for the train to go by me to shake me off or suck me in. But I had a good view of Rob running right down the middle of the railroad tracks with nothing but air between the railroad ties. Well, I'm 2 feet ahead of the train. Didn't hear the whistle, train's on the trestle. Running from a life I'm too young to die. Caught in the middle, train's big and I'm little, and I'm 2 feet ahead of the train. Well, I'm 2 feet ahead of the train. One wrong step, being off a wreck. If she goes any faster, you're gonna get me with a cow catcher. I'm 2 feet ahead of the train. I'm a little worried, but I can't complain, cause I'm 2 feet ahead of the train. Think about that. You're not in front of it, where are you? Don't worry, everybody, she's okay. Nobody dies in this song. Everybody's okay. Well, I'm 2 feet ahead of the train. She's breathing now back, it's as simple as that. I hear the clatter, she's looking at her, she's a locomotive. I'm a worm in the rain, and I'm 2 feet ahead of the train. Well, it's a one-way bridge, no putting on skids. She has the mercy for a stupid little kid. I'd go to hell for all the things I did. Sorry to my teachers, sorry to my folks, sorry for my lousy grades and all things I broke, sorry to the neighbors, sorry about the yards, sorry about the damage to the houses and the cars, sorry for the water fight, soccer ball, BB gun, newspaper, slingshot. Pretty good aim. Sorry for the rocks with all the other trains, dirt clods and freight trains go together. Well, I'm 2 feet ahead of the train. All that really matters is that I get up flatter than the feather of a chicken in a weather vane. What did I just say? All that really matters is that I can end up flatter than the feather of a chicken in a weather vane. What do they mean? No pain, no gain. I'm 2 feet ahead of the train. Here it comes. Now if I can make it off, I'll tumble on a carpet and never take my life again. Never live as though my time is handed to me on a platter. Happy with the trough. Happy to be alive. Happy if I stay 2 feet. Ahead of the train. It's black. Thanks.
You know, you mentioned a little bit of this earlier, but I think for most of us, and I think it's probably true for you guys now, you know, when I think back on my life, I kind of categorize the time and the, you know, the different stages of life based on the music that it was listened to at the time. And I remember particularly kind of being, you know, at the age that these students are now and thinking, you know, that's the music that kind of helped us to sort of form up, you know, what we believed and the stuff we were passionate about and all that. Do you feel that way?
You mean in terms of the era, the music that we grew up on, defined our...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, having the brothers that I did, I got to be, you know, introduced to their music. So my brother Pat, the one who bagged groceries, he brought in Pink Floyd into the house. I love Pink Floyd because of that. Of course, I think a lot of people do anyway, and I would have probably picked up on Pink Floyd, but I was pretty young. My first 45 that I remember listening to was Creedence Clearwater, Down on the Corner, Looking Out My Back Door, one of those two. And the Beatles, Beatles was Day Tripper. We had a 45 of that. So I'm born in 62. So 68 was when I was tuned in already to music.
Yep.
And I would come home and dial the radio around. I love the Carpenters. They had that song, Why Do Birds Suddenly Appear? You know, I would come home. I thought she was singing to me, and I would dial. It was on those on 3 radio stations: KFRC, KYA, and KLIV. Those are the 3 AM radio stations that I was just always listening to. I'd go to sleep and I'd listen to that stuff, and there was a really a swath of songwriters back then from that era. You know, Dylan, Neil Young, you know, Joni Mitchell, America, and some one-offs that you didn't, maybe one-hit wonders you didn't hear from again, but they were all influenced.
Oh yeah.
They were all on the radio a lot. You know, you didn't have to go find them; they were right there on the radio all the time. And I feel pretty lucky to have been listening at that time. Then disco hit. Like around when I was about 13 or 14, disco hit, and I had a choice: heavy metal or disco. And I went heavy metal. Not heavy metal, but, you know, Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, Blue Oyster Cult. Those are the bands that I started listening to and playing. And I was a teenager, so I really wanted the more aggressive stuff. And then I fell back into my acoustic roots pretty soon after that. After my mid-20s, I was playing the ballads again and getting into this kind of music.
When you think back on that, and you know, when again, I know that you really kind of developed your chops playing covers, right?
Yeah.
But is that so? When you think back on when you really first started writing and really keeping and performing the songs, did you find that? Do you think that there's some of those songs that really you were finding the voice from
No
what
doubt.
you've been listening to?
Yeah, just by learning Jimmy Buffett, learning Fogelberg, learning Bread. I sang Bread in songs. I still will sing Bread, no matter what you think of them. I still like David Gates and Bread. I found a diary underneath a tree.
So
That was a departure. I'm sorry, I didn't. Well, the kids don't. I don't know how old y'all are at Schreiner. Probably 30 years too late to even know what that song is, but.
or care.
Right. Yeah.
So, no, my question really that I was kind of getting to is, I think for me and probably a lot of us, you know, you end up consciously or unconsciously at some of the early stuff, you're ripping off the people that you listen to.
Yeah, I'm sure I did. Paul Simon would be one of the people that I know that I borrowed from.
Yep.
That old Elton John stuff, Yellow Brick Road, Cat Stevens, Neil Young for sure. I played a lot of Neil Young, Jackson Browne, Harry Chapin, Storyteller. I did gravitate to storytelling lyrics even early on. I cared about storytelling back then. And I liked that I was hearing it. That's probably why I care about it.
Right.
Now, that's not to say that I don't know what the stories are like in today's music, because I'm not today's music. I don't go out and buy the new stuff. But I'm sure there's storytelling in those too. That's what songs are.
Yeah, just a different form.
Most of them are stories of some kind. You know. Yeah.
You guys have another question?
Can you tell us about Scarecrow?
Sure. It's a song I wrote called Scarecrow. It's about a 10-year-old song now. I was in a relationship, and this woman was very much a water person, and I just have dreams about drowning, you know. So I was the scarecrow. If you want to go into the metaphor of that, I'm the scarecrow in that song, and she's the seabird. And it was a way for me to sort of talk about the relationship for what it was, which was a little bit flawed and wasn't going to work, and for me to sort of come to terms with the differences between us and how we lived and what we wanted in life, you know. Is that an intro to?
Yeah, I think it was.
Okay. If you guys just ask for the song, I can do that too without having to explain it. All right.
She's a seabird, I'm a scarecrow. She came to rest upon my elbow. She flies fast, I watch the corn grow. Will she come back? Well, damned if I know. Damned if I know. Dirty collar, wrinkled pockets, felt hat hanging across my sockets, arms of wood, crooked jaw. Am I the saddest thing? Am I the saddest thing she ever saw? She's a seabird, I'm a scarecrow. Will I turn to driftwood in the shallows? Well, damned if I know. Damned if I know. Could I go beyond the barbed wire? If I could walk, I'd run like wildfire. To the beaches, to the boats, where she dives and where she floats. That song, big blue water to a scarecrow. Will I turn to driftwood in the shallows? Well, damned if I know. Damned if I know. Damned if I know. I chase off a flock of thieves, but one lone robber ain't afraid of me. Where she lands and when she leaves ain't got much to do with me.
that song, deep blue water to a scarecrow. Will I turn to driftwood in the shallows? Well, damned if I know. Damned if I know. She's a seabird, I'm a scarecrow. She came to rest upon my elbow. She flies fast, I watch the corn grow. If she come back, well, damned if I know. Damned if I know. Damned if I know. Thank you.
Some of these folks out here I know are songwriters or aspiring songwriters, and one of the reasons that I think it's that I was interested in doing this series in the first place is because I wanted to give these guys an opportunity to hear and observe what it is that real songwriters do,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, you talked earlier about how that has changed a little bit over the years as you've continued to write, but tell these guys a little bit about the actual process.
Okay. For me, you know. So I can tell you when I first started, I was really driven by the guitar music, and I'd hum into it, you know, hum over it, and just kind of try to conjure up words, you know. Get a line or two that sounded like it made sense and felt good, and I'd build on that. I do a lot less of that now. I usually start with an idea. It could be really random on the page, and it might be halfway down the page. I sometimes deliberately write what I'm thinking in the middle of the page on the right, because I don't think it's always going to be the title or the focus of the whole lyric. And then I just play with the lyric until I think I've got it fleshed out as content, not as stuff that rhymes. I mean, I'm looking for those rhymey lines, but I'm trying to find the details that make the story compelling, and that say the things that maybe I wouldn't have said if I was trying to rhyme too hard. You know, sometimes you write you could write 4, 5, 10 pages worth of content out about a story or a thought, a thing that happened to you or situation, whatever. And you can come up with a lot of material that you don't think at first belongs in the song, but if it pulls at you and you like what you said, if it's quirky, you can figure out ways to get quirky stuff in there and then have the details really make your story come alive. Then worry about the title, then worry about what that you've written, what might be the refrain that ties it together. Then worry about the chorus. After you've got all the guts and the meat on the bones, then I think you can name it, and then you can do that's sort of where I come at it. You know, I like to write the story and feel like I got something to say first before I start trying to stick it into the lyric box or the verse, chorus, verse, chorus. I break the rules all the time with that too. I break the rules all the time.
That was one of my points I was going to make about your songwriting is you do break the rules a lot.
Yeah.
And so we talk about the rules, and what are the rules, right? There's a pop form, and it's basically the pop form is what you hear on the radio, whether you're listening to country music or you're listening to pop music or rock and roll music. I mean,
yeah.
And it's verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, out.
Or maybe third verse, chorus,
third
out.
verse, right.
Yeah.
And,
If you're writing a country song, it's in that 3 to 3.5 minute
Yep.
thing, and so you probably aren't including a third verse if you want there to be a solo. You're taking up
that's where your third verse would have gone.
Right.
You got to say things pretty quick.
3 minutes,
Yeah.
three and a half most.
That last song, Scarecrow, is probably over 4 minutes.
Right.
And I like to fall into that pattern. It's comfortable for me, and I know it's comfortable for the listener to write a verse and a refrain and a verse, refrain, chorus, same thing. Sometimes, though, the Damned If I Know isn't really a chorus, it's more of a one-line thing.
It's a refrain.
But then to get to the bridge, I love doing that. I do. I like the challenge of writing a bridge. Some of the songs that I've written that don't have bridges probably need a bridge.
Talk about that. What is it? Tell this audience, what's a bridge?
A bridge is just a departure. It might be different in tone, definitely different melody and different chords than the rest of the song. So you got your, the bridge in Scarecrow. I'm still down here, okay. I chase off a flock of thieves, that part. One lone robber ain't afraid of me. Where she lands and when she leaves ain't got much to do with me, The metaphor through that whole song stays pretty consistent, but a bridge can depart from the whole thing, So your bridge, you could be singing a song about, a bad day at work, but the bridge might talk about your dad. Maybe your dad's working or something, and you're thinking back on your old man and how hard he worked, and maybe the bridge just goes somewhere else, but you loop back to what the story at hand is, which might be the third verse. You're coming back to the song about your bad day, and maybe the third verse because you reflected during the bridge about your first two verses, complaining about your job. Maybe that's what happens. Is the third verse the bridge you talk about your old man working harder than you did, and getting you through life, or maybe your mom and. Or maybe,
It's really where the thesis
Then
sentence
you-
is,
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of times that the bridge is really, this is what, okay, all this other stuff I'm showing you, with these stories and these word pictures, and the bridge is this is getting at the essence of what
Yeah. You do try to distill. I think I'm a rule breaker, so I don't care if the bridge does a certain thing or not. I enjoy the bridge to be its own thing. I definitely love that part. Whether it ties it all together, it might be that, what I do sometimes, and this is cheating too, I'll write a 4-verse song, and I'll see that it needs a bridge, and I'll take the third verse and break it up into pieces and do something else with it. And it's still content, but I'll take the one that doesn't belong as well with them. Of the 4 verses, okay, now I don't have a bridge, and I know that I don't really need a 4-verse song, but I got it. And so what if I took the third or one of the verses and just reconstructed it, pulled a few things away from it, added a few things, and I've done that to songs where now I got a bridge and it still has the content that I had intended in the song.
So illustrate that, play a little bit, even if you just play part of the song, you play a little bit of what you're
illustrating. All right, I got an old song about a guy. Something I do a lot, I tell stories about other people. I don't always talk about myself, So this is a buddy of mine, and this is another one of those railroad town kid songs that I had. He was on my baseball team when I was 12. His name was Brian Jones, not the Rolling Stones guy. Just a kid named Brian Jones. His dad worked for the railroad. So I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'll play the first verse, get you started, and I'll play the bridge, and I'm going to tell you that the bridge was a verse. I just changed the music, okay? I'm up early crossing town, the gravel shakes my Schwinn. I cross the tracks and hop the fence, and his mama lets me in. Brian Jones is still asleep, so she and I drink coffee. She cooks me up a scrambled egg, and we play a hand of rummy. The kitchen air is getting warm, the sunlight hits the table. We both swat the flies away and take our turns to shuffle. Then I say nicely, Mrs. Jones, can I go to the pasture? She says yes you can, feed the horse and ride him after. It pays to be the early bird, it's cooler in the morning. I do the chores and ride the horse while Brian Jones is sleeping. I'll just tell you right now that Brian never wakes up in the song, he sleeps through the whole thing. Okay, so I'll go down to the bridge now, I'm gonna skip the second verse. Well, I saddle up the little brown, Brian named him Taxi. He don't fight too much when I get on, and he don't try to buck me. He likes to walk, he likes to trot, he likes to gallop faster and run me through a walnut tree, land me in the pasture. That's the bridge. Then I get into the last verse. So I go down to the minor. Well, I saddle up the little brown, Brian named him Taxi. It's a musical departure to break up the monotony of going back to the same melody for the verse 3. I just changed it, you know. So I could go, okay, so at least I can do it. Well, I saddle up the little brown, Brian named him Taxi. I recorded it that way the first time. I didn't have the bridge. And I listened to it. It went on in a compilation out of Chicago. And then I listened to it and I thought, why did I sing this whole song without ever writing a bridge for it? And I just took the third verse and I just knocked the crap out of it and turned it into a bridge.
Yep.
That's my rule, knock the crap out of it. Yep.
Do you feel like you chose to be a songwriter, or did it choose you? Is this a calling?
Yeah, I think it is. I tried to do other things. I was bad at a lot of things. I had so many jobs through my 20s. I worked at a nursery, tree nursery. I worked in a Kilpatrick's bakery depot, cleaning trucks, bagger. I worked at a deli, 3 gas stations, UPS for a week. I was a pipe fitter with my dad. That was my most steady work, was working in my dad's business, doing construction, digging ditches and putting sewage pumps in.
So you tell a lot of stories in your songs, and you made the point earlier, which I've noticed before, about you write a lot of songs about other people.
Yeah.
So this is a small group of people here. We're all within the cone of silence, and
Yeah, except there's cameras everywhere.
but other than that, what song really reveals the most about Michael McNevin?
Can I look at my list?
Yeah.
All right. For those aspiring dropouts, and you want to play music, you're probably going to start playing bars. Maybe not, but don't be afraid to. This is my covers list. This has got all the Beatles, Paul Simon, Jimmy Buffett, Elton John, Creedence, Kenny Loggins, Dylan, Gordon Lightfoot, Pink Floyd. And then this side's got my originals on it. Most of these are the old ones I don't know anymore. And I just going to tell you the name of it. Do I have to play it? Oh, that's different. Okay. Let's see. Most revealing. I gotta say, I'm a bit of a chicken. I don't like to write about me too deeply. I like to tell the story and then let it hit the listener in the stomach, however it does. Well, what's the question again?
What song do you have that reveals the most
Reveals
about you?
the most about me. You know, I think they all do, you know. It's a generic answer, but they do.
Well, you have to choose one and play it. So.
Man, I know. I can tell you that I am moved by certain songs that I've written because they are near and dear to me. If I write a song and I cry the first 10 or 15 times I'm singing it, it probably means it means a lot to me, and I have to get past that point before I can play it. Or while I'm playing it, I got to hold back stuff, you know. So I can play that and try not to cry. I can do that. It's a song about my mom. So my mother and both my mom and dad grew up in the Mission District in San Francisco. It's in the projects. They moved from Connecticut and New Hampshire as kids and moved into the same building in 1945. And when they got older, they fell in love. My mom was always hanging out with my dad's little sisters. But just before they even started dating, my mom was a junior in high school. She was in Glee Club. You know what that is? Theater, singing, dancing. And she had a job at a five and dime, making a little bit of money. And she didn't have the idea of kids yet, didn't have the idea she was going to be married yet. She just had a different thing in her head. And this is the day in the life of my mom. She told me the story of this day. And then 10 years later, I wrote the song about it. Sometimes you carry a story with you for a while before it becomes a song. This is right? Okay. This is called Margaret, 1956.
Margaret skipped class today. She did not go to Glee Club. Took a puddle jumper to LA to walk around in Hollywood. Standing tall on a corner, a cotton dress on and her hair back. Saddle shoes and bobby socks, a needle in a haystack. She's a ringer for Kate Hepburn. She could play her daughter. And if they drive past her all day long, maybe one of them will spot her. Margaret skipped class today. She did not go to Glee Club. Took a puddle jumper to LA to walk around in Hollywood. She lifts her chin and looks ahead, just like she learned in theater. She's a long way from her high school play, but she's not afraid to be here. 'Cause she can sing and she can dance, and she can hold a pose for hours. Like a statue in the Rose Parade, like a Pasadena flower. Margaret skipped class today. She did not go to Glee Club. Took a puddle jumper to LA to walk around in Hollywood. Sometimes you do your best when you don't know the odds. Sometimes you gotta guess like you knew it all along, like you knew it all along. Afternoon, the sun is low, and time moves like molasses. She still imagines they may come and ask her what her name is. Margaret skipped class today. She did not go to Glee Club. Took a puddle jumper to LA to walk around in Hollywood. Sometimes you gotta try, even though you don't know why. Sometimes you do some things that don't seem silly at the time. She caught her plane and she came home. Her folks were very worried, but that was Margaret's last hurrah. She settled down and married. Mom, I love the way you watch the Rose Parade for hours. How after all these many years, you still love the floats and flowers.
You guys have another question?
I notice you do a lot of drop tunings.
I do.
What is your favorite?
What is my what?
Your favorite
My
tuning?
favorite drop tuning. Well, I wrote a few songs in open G. I can't say it's my favorite. And I wrote a couple or three in Dadgad. Can't say it's my favorite. But those are the most common open tunings. You sound like you're a guitarist and you're messing around. And Joni Mitchell is the blame for all of that. I'm going back to here. For this one, it's the only song I play in this tuning. I just created the one tuning for this song. And I dropped the B string to an A, and I dropped the D string to a C. If you heard it as a natural tuning, it wouldn't sound very good if I just strummed it. But then you fish around, right, for chords that do sound good. I've got about 20 tunings. 4 or 5 are kind of common. I would say that Bagger is one of the favorites, but I only wrote the one song in it, which was like Dadgad. So earlier I played Bagger. I raised the B string to a C instead of dropping it to the A, so Gad, G-A-D. Instead of G-A-D, it's G-C-D. You raise the B string a half step. Raise it, you know. So that's pretty cool, and I came up with a pretty good instrumental. It's a pretty fancy picking pattern. And I've got another one that it's beautiful. It's called Dak. Or how long? I can go on and on about tunings. Dak Gab, D-A-D. Yeah, you could bother me after. I'll show you Dak Gab. Let me show you the Dak. Should I? Once I go into this tuning, though, I'm in hell. I'm in tuning hell, and I have to come out of it again. Am I allowed to say that on TV? It's a difficult tuning to get to because you got to drop all the strings. Think of this: Dak, D-A-C. So the E string goes down to D, the D string goes down to C, and then it's Gab. G stays where it's supposed to be. A and B, G-A-B. 3 blind mice, you know? They're really close together. The E becomes the B string.
So if you do that, are you going to be able to get that guitar back in tune?
Oh, I can totally, yeah. I've got good ears. I can tune it right back up. If you want to hear
No,
it.
you're good.
It's a pretty song.
Go for it, yeah.
All right, I'll do it. Okay, so I was in standard. Drop the D. Now you drop the D string down to a C. Okay. Okay. Down to A, Gab, G-A. And this has got to go all the way down to a B. There are whole steps now. Musicians, raise your hand if you're musicians out there. Enough of you know what I'm talking about, I guess.
So one of the
I feel like a
tricks,
mad scientist with that one.
one of the tricks when we're sitting around in song circles at the festival is somebody will borrow your guitar and then they'll do that to it, right? They'll play a song, they'll hand it back to you.
Well, I could do it.
Go ahead.
You want to hear the song that it comes with? It's a pretty song. I wrote the music and had it laying around. I don't always do that, but sometimes I just like to play the guitar and write music. And I knew I would put a lyric to it, and I ended up hanging out with my friend Buddy Modlock. And Buddy and I wrote the lyrics together when we were in Tennessee hanging out. Let's see, and it's got a pretty, I don't think he plays it this way because it's unique. It's kind of a, yeah, I don't know. You'd have to figure out a way to play it in standard tuning. I'm on TV and I haven't played this song in a while, so. So I just like the disclaimer of it. This might go well, or it might not. Okay. Here's a. You guys had a big storm here last night? One of the lines in here was a line I wrote on my desk in my car, driving through New Mexico on the way to Texas. This is a long time ago. Okay, I think we're good. It's called Nowhere to Somewhere.
Good kind of tired in a rugged terrain. Mug of black coffee, sky full of rain. Old timers talking about 10 different ways of getting from nowhere to somewhere. Now asking directions is like flipping a quarter, or hoping the waitress will bring what I ordered. Don't wanna go hungry when I cross the border, heading from nowhere to somewhere. El Nino, the baby, is blessing us all, splashing the dust on a cinder block wall. The desert is drinking the rain as it falls, falling from nowhere to somewhere. This runaway storm is a lot like we love. Sometimes too little, sometimes too much. Wild and wandering, but more than enough to get us from nowhere to somewhere. El Nino, the baby, is blessing us all, splashing the dust on the cinder block wall. The desert is drinking the rain as it falls, falling from nowhere to somewhere. So baby, I'm leaving this muddy old town. The cafe is closing, there's a crack in the clouds. I was lost for a while, but to you I am bound. I'm heading from nowhere to somewhere. Heading from nowhere to somewhere.
got through it. Now I got to tune him back up.
While you're doing that, what again? There are writers out here. Some of them are songwriters. Some of them are interested in writing fiction and other forms of writing, creative writing. But what advice would you give new and aspiring writers?
Well, what I learned in my fiction course, which I only took one, I loved the fiction course so much. I feel like it influenced my music. I feel like it maybe influenced, reading books, reading novelettes, reading short stories, especially short fiction, influenced my songwriting in a large way. I studied fiction in my 8th grade class with a guy named John Callio, who I'm still friends with, great poet, and my 8th grade teacher many years ago had us reading Shirley Jackson and Ambrose Bierce, Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. And he made us listen to Beatle records while we were studying. He had LPs. He made us study Bruce Springsteen's lyrics and told us, that these aren't just people singing, they're actually doing something artistic with their words. And I said, okay, good. I wasn't playing yet. The next year I started picking the guitar up, and I studied with my college professor, Sarah McCauley, and she showed me how to write short fiction. One thing you do is you start in the middle a lot of times. And the lines have double meanings, you write in layers, so you can really thicken up the thing. The story always rides above. I always have a story that anybody could follow, or most times. I do write some esoteric stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense, but to me it makes sense. But most of the stories will have stuff underneath it too, little side stories if you dig in and listen. Metaphor and suspense, not giving it away. When I play a song in concert, I don't say this song's about, and then tell them all about the song before I play the song. I might tell something else and then lead into it. So I would say start in the middle is a good thing. Use dialogue. I remember I had to write a short story that was nothing but dialogue. That was the assignment. Tell the story through 2 characters' voices, and don't say anything about where they are or what they're doing. And then once the story's been told through the dialogue, you know what they were doing, where they are, what's happening.
Show, don't tell.
Dialogue is really, really great for, even if it's a little bit in a song, a little bit of dialogue just sort of puts you right there, and it's got to be real. It can't be flowery, poetic, rhymey stuff. It has to be colloquial, what you would say kind of language, And then it makes it real. The song becomes very real, and you want the characters to be true after that. So keeps you honest. Yeah. And don't be afraid to write about the weird stuff. I think it all has a place.
Okay, last chance. Another question?
Okay, this is like a bit of a 2-part question. I mean, it's just 2 questions, but I want to know, how do you write music? Like your process on writing music, not the lyrics, but the music itself. And then I also want to know what motivates you to write in general.
Well, it's an interesting question, and I can start with the same way that I write nowadays, because I'm lyrically, and I love being a musician. I think I've honed my voice over time, and I've worked really hard at the guitar. But I really care about the lyric most, and if I hear another song that I like, it's not because I loved the melody or loved the guitar playing. They could be, just okay vocally and just okay musically. But if I love the lyric, I probably like the song a lot, and I want to hear it again. So my first answer to the question is, I usually write the lyric, and then that drives me to want to make the music happen for it. So I get going, at least half the ball is rolling lyrically, and I get excited. That's the motivation, is I got something I want to say. That motivates me to want to then give it some music that it deserves. Some of the stuff's complicated. I never want to write a song like I just played again. It was too hard to try to learn it. But I probably will. I'll force myself and drive myself to that place. It's such a pretty guitar part, and I got to write this really beautiful lyric with Buddy. And so it was worth all that work. But I'm okay with just, straight ahead song with
basic guitar. I write in a standard all the time, and I have a kind of a Travis pick style. And so I guess the short answer is the lyric drives me to make the music. I do want to make the music as interesting to me as I can. I can't say that I'm a Mozart type of composer, so I do my best at just getting the level of music up to where it does help the lyric. And if the lyric and the melody are boring me, then I probably need to work harder on it, because I think it'll probably bore the audience too. And then it does justice to the lyric if you can do that.
I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight, especially students, and I'd like you to have a chance to thank our artist tonight, Michael McNevin.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, buddy.
Close us out with a song.
Okay. Let me play my electric. I got a lot of new ones. Get rid of this now. Okay, this is new. I wrote this in Michigan a couple of years ago. New to me is a couple of years old. Okay. I'm playing it because where you guys are at in your age and your life, you have a pretty clear recollection of what you've just gone through in your teenage years, right? And this is a prompt. I write from prompts a lot, and the prompt just had a guy who's smoking a cigarette. I went far away from the song prompt that I was given, and I decided I would write about a friend of mine who started smoking pretty early in life. And then the amount of time that I spent at his house with his family. So this is a song about, without saying what it's about, which I just told you not to do, I just did it, a slice of a story, of a swath of a couple of years with a family that I grew up with. A good friend of mine, we're all, me and my buddy Mike Santos, we're the youngest of a bunch of boys, you know. Thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. All right. It's called Young Santos. Young Santos started smoking at the tender age of 12. Menthols on the swing set, 3 o'clock to the dinner bell. Latchkey brothers ran the roost, raid the fridge and raise some hell. The Santos house was open season when Daddy drove the Peterbilt. Leroy took the long hauls. A week or two he got good pay. Kept the kids in bikes and shoes. They missed him when he drove away. And Judy picked her battles. She lost them all the same. The boys are more like Leroy, getting bigger every day. She called Leroy on the CB. Come back, Leroy, are you there? We sure miss you, sweetie. Kids say hi. Kids say hi. The oldest had a dime bag trade and $1 million smile. The middle one had a temper fit for any middle child. They both tenderized young Santos in the hallway to see if he would cry. Eventually he didn't, so eventually they didn't try. Mornings on the kitchen phone, her best friend made her laugh. She lost her in the canyon, never quite got over that. Called Leroy on the CB. Come back, Leroy, are you there? We sure miss you, sweetie. Kids say hi. Kids say hi. Kids say hi. Divorces were a fad that year. All the parents got one. Motors, weights, and vinyl. Distractions for the Santos sons. And she kept to her bedroom with her Boone's Farm soaps and sweaters. Judy's job got easy when she gave up altogether. It all went by the wayside. The Friday nights and double dates. And Leroy kept her guessing somewhere on the interstate. She called Leroy on the CB. Come back, Leroy, are you there? We sure miss you, sweetie. Kids say hi. Kids say hi. Kids say hi. Young Santos started smoking at the tender age of 12. He's the one behind the barbecue, living up in Reno now. Leroy landed in Manteca. He's got an acre for his truck. I hear Judy's working down at Casper's. I hear she changed her luck. I hear she changed her luck. I hear she changed her luck. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate it.